And also, the more points, the more accurate would be our polynomial interpolation for that. So the next topic, which is somewhat related to interpolation, would be curve fitting. I hope everyone can see it. Maura gihapon atong introduction. So for when we had our root finding method before, we are given a function and then we identify asa dapit ang function cross sa 0, right? We have f of x equals 0. Now the question is, asa magtaan ang function, right? Tiit mataan ang function. I think itubag na siya atong when we had our discussion for interpolation. It is from the behavior that we get, or the behavior of the data that we get from experimentation or from observation. So then we have our function. Naa siya from the model of phenomena. Of course, when we have our experiments, you can dito nag-gather the data, then we have our points. Or naatay observe data, buhatan siya og equation. Now for interpolation, if we have observed it, when we generate our polynomial, the points are created such that the polynomial that it generates would pass through the points. Right? If we have these points, iba natay x of y, pagbuhat nato sa equation, ang equation nga ato ma-generate for interpolation, moagi jud siya diha nga mga points. So, kung ato tong ihubang atong x of y, tulong jud siya dito nga mga points. But there is another way of doing it. What if our points would appear this way? Kung atong points ba, mauna siya. Mauna ang atong points na gagather kung ato siyang i-graph. If we are to make it appear, or if we are to make our equation nga moagi jud siya sa points, ingana ang dagway sa atong curve. Right? Ingana ang dagway sa atong curve. Pero, if we look at the points, pwede ba nato siya approximate lang? So that point might appear, look like, might describe a line. So pwede siya, pwede lang siya i-ani lang. Then we generate a linear. If it looks like a linear behavior, dila jud siya straight line jud due to the differences or mga disturbances when the experiment is made. So if we have a set of points and when we graph the points, when we plot the points on our graph, it looks like linear. Then we can just make a equation of the line to make a generalization of the data that were given, right? So that is curve fitting. I-fit na to siya kung unsa ang behavior sa atong point. So unsay gisuwat diri? Curve fitting is capturing the trend in the data by assigning a single function across the entire range. Mao nang example niya. This is interpolation. The curve that is generated would actually pass all the points. Pero kaning curve fitting, itulong lang nato. Then on, we look at how the points are plotted, how it looks like, and then i-fit na to siya kung unsay ang niyang function. Diba? So for this, kung mo ang points, because mo naman siya kuan increasing linearly. So we can have an equation of this form. A linear equation, f of x equals ax plus b. To represent kato nga mga points. So I hope I have made it clear the difference between interpolation and curve fitting. So, ano ni siya? Straight line man siya. So, our equation would be a linear equation. F of x equals ax plus b. Ang pangutana ani, unsa-unsaon man ni siya og forma. So the goal is if we are to make a linear fit for that, for those points, should be able to identify the values of A and B para mutulong siya. Of course, everything is not linear lang. Sometimes, ing-ani og dagway, sometimes po ing-ani. Kani siya, I think this can be linear. Pwede din siya linear. Kani po siya, pwede siya linear, leaning to the left. However, kaning profit versus paid labor hours, kung ato siyang, pila man ato ang ginansya comparing to the sweldo nato. Magkadako ang sweldo, of course, magkadako ang profit. But there is a time that pag magkinubra na ang, of course, I think this part, pag budako na imuhang labor hours, I think this part would be bayad na kag overtime ani. So the profit would also be lesser. So anyway, if we have points that behaves this way, hindi na ba na nato siya, hindi na nato na siya pwede mapugos ng straight line, di ba? So a curve fitting would also have a parabolic curve. So kani siya pwede oxygen in soil, pwede siya in a straight line, of course, leaning to the left. Kani siya pwede straight line. Kaning poor pressure. Kaning height of drop object with respect to time, I think pwede siya parabolic, di ba? Sabot na ning profit kanina og this cannot be linear here. Pwede tingali diri dapit. But anyway, if we look at this na ay pangutana sa ubos, is a straight line suitable for each of these cases? Of course, no. So we will not limit the concept of curve fitting with straight lines only. Of course, ang pinakasayo ng straight line. So let us look at a linear curve fitting. Meaning, how do we generate an equation of the line for um, these points? So for example, we have these 4 points, there, and then we try to find a linear fit for this point. So our straight line have a general form, f of x equals ax plus b. How do we solve for a and b? So kung tanaw nato siya, we can have a line for that describes these 4 points, kaning blue. Or we can have a red line diha. So which of these line would fit better? Of course, kung tanaw na to siya, it looks like the blue would fit better than the red one. Murag simang rajud kaayo ning red. I hope ang line is very thin. I hope you can see it from your end. So anong niingon man ta nga ang blue mas angayan? If we will try to measure the distance of the points from the blue line, i-compare nato sa distance of the points from the red line, murag mas dagko ang difference sa red line. Mas gamay ang kalayuan sa point sa blue line. So we can say that the blue line is a good fit because its distance, the distances of the points is nearer the blue line. Kay ko katunong jud siya. Ing ani nga line akong gusto. Right? So there are several forms, several norms that will be used to measure the residuals. Ang residual ani is this difference kaning diferensya niya kaning line. So one would be to check for the maximum error. Ang katong pinakagamay nga maximum error mao to atong sundon. Or number two, we check for the average error. Meaning average difference nila. And then of course, we follow the lesser error. Or we check for the root mean square error. Kaning root mean square error, this is that error um, that is usually used in statistics. So here in the curve fitting that we use, we will use the root mean square error. Of course, katong error nga gamay, mao na itong sundon. So if we look at this, unsa ba ning root mean square error? We get the difference, we square them, and then we sum up all the difference, and then we get the mean. And then we get the root. So we square silang tanan, and then we get the mean, and then we get the root. So nagitawag siya ka root mean square error. Square ang error, let us look at the expression, is the difference, we get the difference, square siya, and then i-add silang tanan, and then i-divide to get the mean, and then raise to 1/2 to get the root. So muna ni siya, the difference are these lines. Right? Kana siya nga line. And then we square. So mauna ni siya, and then gi-add siya, and then gi-sum. That's the root mean square error. So our feet in a straight line, our feet is a straight line. So we now substitute it to the equation f of x equals ax plus b. So ato siyang tanawon, the error would be, of course the best line would have the minimum error between the data points. So the error, so we have to know the number of data points. If we look at this, diba? For each term, y minus f of x1 squared, kaning f of x, mao ni siya from the makaputang mo po diri og kani siya i-substitute ni diri, diba? So mao na ni diha, right? Of course, we get the minimum. Now to get the minimum from our differential calculus, di ba, katong maximum minimum problems, katong sa una pa, to get the minimum or to get the minima, we get the derivative of that function and then equate it to 0. So mo nang gipasabot. I-derive siya and then equate siya to 0. Right? So anyway, pag i-derive siya with respect to A, also we derive it with respect to B. Okay, naaman. The unknowns here are A and B. Then we solve for A and B using these two equations, right? So kung solve siya, Mao ni ang dagway. If we derive this and equate it to 0, this would be the equations. We should be try to look at this. Ako na lang na siya i-post po ko papot appeal sa tuwang assignment. Okay, ito nga na to siya rectangle. So now, this would be the resulting equation for this. So for set of points, we would be able to solve for this. We square all the x's. We get the sum of all the square of the x's times a plus sum of the x times b equals the sum of the products of x and y. This is the first equation. The second equation would be the sum of all the x times a plus kaning n is this is the number of points times b equals the sum of the y. We now have two equations and two unknowns, a and b. And we will be able to solve for a and b. Tanaw na to kung makaya sa powers. I hope masabtan ha. Nakasulat ba ko diri? So anyway, let us masulat ba ko? Ngita tag sa PowerPoint murag makasulat ko no. So let us try to solve for this activity here. Ay naapon to eh, naapon tayo kuan. I think natay board diri sa whiteboard diri sa Google Meet. I have shared a whiteboard frame. Uh, nauna ko kung makaya sa powers. So for example, as I have shown there, find the least square line y equals ax plus b for the following data. So naatay x and y, negative 2. 1. So naatay values sa x and y. And we are to find a linear fit for that. Tanaw na to tong sa tong only squarean. So, x squared A. So, sa ton ang so I would have ano lang, diba? I-copy ra na ako. Ha, pwede ba mag-copy dire-diretso? Dili. Plus summation of xd equals xy. Ang sa ikaduha, summation of xa plus nb. The second equation would be the sum of xa plus nb was sum of y. I think sum of y. Sum of y. So ayan na ako. Pwede balik ito. Yan. Kadyo. Kadyo ako na lang kung anong pila to. Negative 2, negative 2, 1, xy ni ha. Balik naman tingali. Negative 1. 0, 3, 1. So x squared for this is 4, 1, 0, 1, 4. Right? Kung totalon siya, 10. I hope na follow sa mga tao. Kung totalon ako ng x, 0, 0 no. xy, product, this would be negative 8, negative 1. O, dili, negative 8. Kasulti sa dog mo sayop ko. Product, product of xy. So we have negative 2, negative 2, 0, 3, 8. Makita din. So the sum would be 8 plus 3, 11 minus 4, 7. Hindi ako kasulat. So this is 7. Sum of y, kung totalon na ko ng y, this is 13. Ito pa. Consulti ba ako sa'yo pa kung mathematics? Na. So this becomes 10a plus 0b equals 7. Pagsulti kung tunong. And this also becomes 0a. N is the number of points. Pila mo na? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus 5b equals 13. So see, we now have two equations, two unknowns. We can solve for A and B. Right? Of course, that is easy to solve. Kay zero man ang na may zero. Nandito nga dito. So from here, we can solve that. We see that A is equal to 7 over 10. Right? And B is equal to 13 over 5. Right. So the linear equation that we can generate using curve fitting or linear curve fitting given these points is equal to f of x equals ax plus b. So 7 over 10 x plus b, which is 13 over 5. Of course, if we plot it, uh, this would be a line following the trend of the points. Na question? Wala. So, that is from the table on letter A. Pero mapapagyapon na siya if the table in B is given using the same method. Gets? Unsay pangutana lain? So the important thing here is to be able, kani ang importante. Kaning gay square 1. Any question? Kung walay question, padayon ta. Way tao, padayon ko. I think you can still do the same with this. Parehas ra. Now, of course, uh, as I have said before, not all uh, observations would follow a straight line. Some would look like a polynomial curve, dili polynomial quadratic curve, right? For example, kaning profit of paid labor hours. Tuwing ani atong points, wala may kwenta, dili man na siya ato pwede ma-represent as a line. Right? It looks more like a higher order polynomial. Diba? This is a diminishing returns. So it cannot predict, a straight line cannot predict a diminishing return curve. So in this case, we would also have uh, another dagway for this. So we would have the power fit. Pwede siya ang anion, which is equal to y equals a times x to the m. So if kita na lang magpurma-purma. So for example, if our cube looks like a times x to the m, we can have uh, this format for our equation. So a is equal to the sum of x times y, x to the m y divided by the sum of x to the 2 times m. But I hope from the example ha, kabalo na tagtanan mo kaum-haom dito. Example, kadyo sa ha. Kadyo ha. So another example is the power fits y equals ax squared and a equals bx cubed. So tunong-tunong ra siya ha. In this case, katong kani ang gamiton where m is the exponent of x there. So, kung ano siya dagway, m is 2 and kaning isa, m is equals to 3. Then we solve for the value of this constant a para matunong. This is how we would solve for the value of the constant. Tapat diha. Kaning a, solve ning a. Now, if we have an exponential equation, we would have to linearize first. Kani siya. So, for example, we have a certain line, a certain set of points that is exponential in nature. Kung ang dagway, murag exponential. So, we would have to linearize it first. Exponential curve siya, so i-linearize siya. So, we would have ln y equals ax plus ln c. So, kaning y, mao ni ang ln y. Then we have x, maura gyapon magpabilin, ang atong b is equal to ln c. So we would have y equals ax plus b. So notice this part here is a linear curve, right? Is a linear curve. Line man ni siya. So we would be using the same technique as kaning naguna. This one, right? To solve for a and b. Pag ma-solve na tong a and b, then we can mauna ni siya ang A nga ma-solve nato. Then for B, we would have to for the C here, we would mauna nga C. So we would raise that. To solve for B, we would raise C to the base E. Ha? B equals ln C, no? Ako ning i-resolve tanan. Ano ang there? Lisod-lisod pa ko. B equals ln C. So from here, B equals ln C. So how do we solve for C? Then, ma-solve naman nato ang A, di ba? Kaya linearize man nato. Ma-solve na nato ang A using, so ang A would be this A here, and then kaning B, o kaning C diri, we have to solve for B here, where B is equal to ln C. So how do we solve for C? Given ang B. So C is equal to E to the B. So mauna na ang that we can solve for C here. So this the equation, the exponential equation would now be of this form. Na example diri. Ato lang ikuan ha. So using data linearization method, find the exponential fit y equals c e to the ax. Mabaling dagway. There. given the 5 data points. Mao ni ang mga points, right? So first is to linearize it. 0 ang kaning y nga exponent ay y nga coordinate we would get the ln for the y coordinates. So na y na siya tanan, ipang ln na tanan, and then get the linear equation. Pag natunog na ang y, ang a and b, we can solve now for the a and b. Kining a nga na-solve niya nga 0.39, mao na ang a. E to the ax, mao na ang a. And then for the b, we get ln b. That would now be the value for c. If the points would actually, or from your point of view, it would look like a parabola, then you can solve for A, B, and C. And the equation would be this parabolic equation. Ma-highlight ba? Kani siya. Of course, we would need to have 3 equations for solving A, B, and C. Naasad ang guide sa ubos. This is an example na solve na EU that we will practice on. Assignment na siya. Oh, assignment naman niya siya. Assignment ni nato. So anyway, any questions for curve fitting? Silence means. Ako na lang nag-inusara. Silence means. Why pangutana? So I hope everyone has tingali, dili jud siya fully understand, but I would be posting an assignment, of course, with the slides, and katong feeling nakasabot na, mas makasabot pa jud. Katong wa pa ka-gets, maka-gets na by solving the assignment yourself. Wala na ko ikasulti. Any other questions? Let me check. Ay, none so far. Salamat. So this is all for now. Kajutha, unsay last topic nato nga gi-test? Gauss-Seidel, no? After Gauss-Seidel, we had next meeting na lang ta magsabot kano sa ta mag-test sunod. Okay ra?
Sira, miss.
Okay, sige.
Yes, miss.
So next meeting, magsabot ta. I think the end of semester would be around week of June 8. Dili pa this month ay. Sige, bye and thank you for today. I-exit na nako ha, kay murag nan so far man yun si Marvin.
Thank you, miss.
Thank you, miss.
All
Bye, miss.
sige po, sige bye. And again, good afternoon. I-end